And welcome to Love Talk Network, friends. It is great to be with you. Today, we are talking about leaving a legacy of service. I'm Kathy Endebrock in the Love Talk Network studios with the marvelous Marlene McMichael and Coach Carrie Brinkater. And we have a very special guest that we're going to introduce in just a moment, who is 92 and still serving the people of Texas every single day. How can that be possible? Well, we're going to give you all the insights and all the wisdom and a lifetime of service and what that has looked like for this amazing man of Texas. Well, Coach Carrie, Marlene, how are y'all doing? How has your week been?
So good. So good. I mean, I just cherish my time with you ladies at Love Talk Network. I frequently just kind of reflect on the time that we've had together, and it's so meaningful. It has changed my life in ways that I can't even begin to describe. So thank you for doing this gig that we call Love Talk Network. And we've had a great 2025. It's been amazing. And I can't wait to experience all that is yet to come. I mean, Kathy, you have two daughters getting married within the next 90 days.
Yeah, that's a little frightening. Thanks for the reminder. Thank you.
Your countenance literally just dropped.
Oh my goodness. It has been such, that I always love that song by Justin Bieber, like I'm running to the altar like a track star. And I always thought that is so funny. And so when my middle daughter got engaged in almost towards the end of February and said, "Oh, I want to get married June the 1st." I'm like, "What? No, you can't. No. That's not how weddings are planned. That's not how this happens. Whoa, back up. Your other sister's already getting married in August." At the time, we thought it was going to be August. Then she shifted it to July. But I said, no, we need to be looking at December. And she's like, "Mom, it's going to be okay. I want to do June 1st.
90 days. When a girl knows she is sprinting to the altar like a track star.
Yes, she is.
All I can say is I'm glad it's you and not me. I can't even imagine, and they're not even in the same town.
Oh, I know.
Not even in the same state.
They're right.
One in Idaho, in Boise, Idaho, and the other one in Dallas, Texas. Yeah, reaching out to a lot of friends and asking for help for sure. There's 8 siblings in my family, 4 boys and 4 girls. And so we call ourselves the Great 8. And so we have a little text string that we keep in touch with everyone. And so when I announced the second engagement and the second wedding, I said, yes, there will be pictures coming in September from me in the local sanatorium. And my younger sister said, "Oh, that's funny. You won't be able to afford a sanatorium."
So, true.
That's very true. You'll just be curled up in a tight ball, like swaying back and forth in your living room.
I can relate to that.
Right?
I mean, there's been so much good that's happened. It's hard to talk about some of the stuff that's not quite so good. But I would say that's sort of where I've had so many people in the hospital and so many friends and family pass away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been sort of like you don't even want to answer the phone, but at the same time, they were all believers. And so I'm really excited about that. And it's just part of life. Death is part of life. And so, we're actually going tomorrow, Friday, to celebrate the life of one of my closest friends. And I just know she always called them adventures. She's having an adventure right now.
She is an adventure with Jesus. But Marlene, when I think about what you've been through in 2025, I have to stop and pause. What you've been through a lot. You've had some really hard times, but I also think what a blessing it is to have loved so many people and to be loved by so many people.
I have the best family on the planet as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you talked about your brothers and sisters, 8 on the chain. We have a chain on one side that I think has 15. It's all cousins.
Wow.
And it's not even their spouses, it's just cousins.
Nice.
And then on the other side, we have a chain, I think that's closer to 20. And it's the same thing. And, so we all keep in touch. If, my brother right now has some property that they've purchased and had for a while, and now they're finally building their big barn. And so he shares pictures of the barn, or they share pictures of the deer they killed or the fish they killed, or so-and-so's in the hospital now. Y'all pray, and everybody prays. And it's an amazing thing to be wrapped in that kind of family, community, and love. It really is. That's the body of Christ. They do the same thing.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, it is a community. It is a family. I don't remember who it was on one of our last programs. Marlene, maybe it was you that said, God did not create orphans. God created a family. And, friends, for those of you who are out there, maybe you don't have a family. You don't have that dad or mom, and you think, I am just here all by myself. God has a family for you to be a part of. He has a community that he has specifically designed you to fill, to step into with your gifts, your talents, the way that he has designed you for that community and that family to love on you and for you to grow in love for them. And that is called the church. And there is a wonderful church near you that you can step into and find that family that your heart is designed just to love and to crave and to be a part of.
I would agree. So, so much going on in 2025.
So much. I am hoping there's going to be a break sometime, and I'm planning on sleeping for a couple of days straight.
Right?
Just
it's so
nothing.
Nothing. That scripture that says, because I think God has such a great sense of humor, and that scripture that says, like, my cup overflows.
Mm-hmm.
If you think about it, an overflowing cup creates a massive mess, right? Yeah. And so I'm like, I just need to plug the drain and have a bath, and my cup is just overflowing with this, never-ending water. I just love it. But I think God is so good to us, and he's so good with us. And there's a man that I'm just so excited to share with everyone. And we've had him on Love Talk. I mean, he was on Love Talk before we were even a part of Love Talk.
Yes,
because his wife is the founder of Love Talk over 40 years ago. He was asking her what she wanted for Christmas or for her birthday. I think it was either Christmas or her birthday. He's going to have to fill us in a minute here. And she's like, I don't know, let me think about it. And she comes back and tells him, I think I want to have a radio program. And he's like, what are you going to call it? He's going to correct me. I'm butchering this story. But she wanted to do a radio program to share the love of Christ with those around her. And that is how Love Talk started. And it's just, so it's amazing. We are here today because of his heart to serve his wife, to give her something meaningful and beautiful and wonderful. And he has a heart of service on his own, and his wife had such a heart for service. Her name was Evelyn Davisson. She passed away. It'll be 2 years this June. And she was a joy, our mentor. We were just looking forward to seeing her in heaven. And I know that she would be so delighted because her amazing husband, Van Davisson, even though he no longer has the love of his life that he was with, serving alongside for 71 years.
71 years. I just need to pause right there.
Yeah.
71 years of love
10 months
together.
and 7 days.
71 years, 10 months and 7 days, almost 72 years together. What a blessing from God to have that much time with a person. I love it. Okay. Sorry.
So,
had to pause on that 71 years of marriage.
So rather than, as we said, curling up in a ball and deciding I'm going to lie in this bed and I'm never getting up again, he's like, okay, the Lord is still putting air in my lungs. I'm still getting up. I am still going to serve the Lord. This is the day that the Lord's created. I'm going to rejoice and be glad in this day. And so he has this amazing cross ministry where he shares the gospel with those around him. He shares Jesus down at the local YMCA, at the fire department. We're going to hear about the way that he continues to serve Christ, to live and leave a legacy of service. Marlene, you have such a heart for service. You're always talking to us about Christmas. What are you going to do to serve? Thanksgiving, what are you going to do to serve? I'm like, oh, okay, service. I've got to serve. It's so important to serve. Well, we're just so excited to have him with us. He has 2 wonderful boys, and he's going to tell us how many grandchildren and great grandchildren, because I lose count. But Van Davisson, welcome to Love Talk. It is a joy every time we get to have you with us.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So
now I finally, after almost 2 years, have got to where I can talk about her a little bit without crying. But
I don't know about that, Van. I bet.
I think there might be some
right here.
We got a whole box of tissues for you. We're so grateful that you're with us, listening friends, and those that are watching. We just want you to know how much we love Van and how much we cherish Van. And at 92 years old, I want to be you. I want to be you, Van. Are you still going to the YMCA every day?
oh yeah,
Oh, see, this is why you are here with us in studio. Drove yourself here because he goes and works out every single day. How many years have you been doing that?
I've been going to the Y for 16 years, and I walked in the mall 5 years before that.
So,
But I didn't know about the Y, and I think my doctor told me about the Y.
oh, your doctor told you about the Y, and I bet
So-
you've got lots of buddies at the Y.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's a great place to go to get pepped up because when you don't see anybody most of the day, it's hard.
Yeah.
And when I go to the Y, I immediately have got at least 6 or 8 people that will come by the equipment that I'm working on and ask me how I'm doing.
Nice.
And my answer is always, well, I got up this morning. But anyway, we have a good time over there. And later, as we talk about the crosses, I give a lot of the crosses to people at the Y. And not long ago, I asked the manager what that YMCA stood for. I knew what it stood for, but I wanted him to say it. And he said, Young Men's Christian Association. And I said, well, where's your cross? And he said, well, I don't guess we've got one. I said, yeah, you do. It's in the trunk of my car. I'll go get it. And so I went outside and got it and brought it in. And he immediately got the maintenance man. And we put the cross up on the wall underneath their symbol and all.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I've had a lot of people that I've given crosses to that will come to me and say, is that your cross on the wall out there? I said, no, it's the YMCA's cross. But it's there to stay. So
That is great.
Anyway.
I'm really proud of the YMCA for hanging that up.
Yeah. And I put the finishing touches just before I came down here on number 451.
Oh my goodness.
And I've given those things away to people all over everywhere.
And now we're going to show you a picture of this in a minute. We have one with us. We're not talking like a little cross the size of your hand. I have this thing hanging up on one of my tallest walls in my house. And I mean, this has got to be like what, about 2 feet by
It's 2 feet by 18 inches.
There you go.
Look at you, Kathy. Way to go. Yeah, mine's in my kitchen, on a big wall in my kitchen. When we return to Love Talk Network, friends, we will show you these amazing crosses. We will hear how Van started this ministry. It really is a ministry, Van.
Yeah.
This ministry of making these crosses. And I think you heard the number that he said, but we'll repeat it again after the break. I'm just so delighted to have Van Davisson in studio with us today as we discuss service, because it doesn't matter how young you are or how old you are, how inexperienced you are or how experienced you are, you can find a place to serve the Lord. More with Love Talk Network right after this.
Welcome back, friends, to Love Talk Network. It's great to be with you today. We are talking about a legacy of service, living a legacy and leaving a legacy, because it's amazing. When you live a legacy, you leave a legacy.
It's
One
true.
takes care of the other. We're in a studio with Van Davisson, the husband of the founder of Love Talk Network, and he's such a joy to have with us. And in our intro segment, Van, we were talking about this, how you serve others by creating crosses, because you love working with your hands, you love woodworking, and these are not little crosses. Carrie, you have
Let
one
me show y'all. So you're gonna have to go to the YouTubes to see this. You can find us on Love Talk Network on YouTube. Look at this thing. Like, how amazing is that? So we've got the 3 crosses there. And like you said, Van, tell our listening friends, Van, why you decided to make it this big, 2 feet by 18 inches.
I don't know. The Lord put that on me, I guess. I just came up with it, and I thank Him every day that He gave me the talent to design that cross the way that it's designed, because it is very unusual. If you'll look at those 40 cross walls, I don't think you'll see one that looks anything like this one.
Right.
And I gave one to one of David's friends that I sat with at his yearly barbecue.
And now David's your oldest boy.
David's the oldest boy, and he does upscale remodeling. And anyway, his people that he works with, he has a barbecue for him right before Christmas. And I sat with this guy and got to know him. And so later on, David told me that he had had cancer and major heart surgery at the same, right about the same time. And so I put him on my prayer list, started praying for him. And later, he came back and told me that the guy was back at work. And so I took one of the crosses, that was one of the first ones, and took it to him. And I said, I got to know you at the barbecue, and I said, I thought of you when I made this cross, and so here it is. And he said, you know what I'm going to do with that? He said, I speak to all my customers on the computer, and I've got a camera that shows me, and then they've got a camera that shows them. And we talk about the business. And he said, I'm going to put that cross on the wall right behind my shoulder where I sit for that computer. And then people will see it and they'll want to know about it. Well, about 6 weeks later, he called me and he said, you're not going to believe the conversations that cross starts. He said, everybody wants to know about that cross. And so
Wow.
anyway, that was kind of a start, and I really started turning them out then. And that
What
was
year
about
was that, Van?
about 4 or 5 years ago.
So about 2020 or 2019? Okay.
And recently I sent one, I finally found George Bush. We dealt with George Bush, and he was the first governor for the governor's prayer breakfast when he was governor of Texas. And so anyway, I'd been looking for an address to send him one, and somebody finally gave me one. Well, I wrote a little note to him and put it in the mail and asked them if I sent something parcel post to George Bush, would they get it at that address? And they said, definitely. So I sent one that I'd made out of what was called light mahogany.
Mhm.
which is a beautiful piece of wood, and it had all kind of grain in it. And I immediately got a letter back from George. Now, this has been 25 years ago
And
that
we
he
are
was.
talking about the former president of the United States. And
Yes,
yeah,
yes. He
okay.
was
I've never gotten a letter from him.
he was
You've
governor
never
of
sent him
Texas
across.
Yeah.
first, and so we made Evelyn wanted to make him the first governor for the governor's prayer breakfast, and we did. And then that year, um, we were Evelyn was named national coordinator of the year for uh, National Day of Prayer, and we were invited to a banquet in Washington where they presented that honor to her. And at that time, we got invited to go to breakfast at the White House, and we did, and it was a lot of fun.
I
Uh,
guess so.
I sat next to a full admiral that I never even talked to when I was in 4 years in the Navy during the Korean War. Uh, but it turned out he was a nice guy, and he wanted to know. He said, "How long you spend in the Navy?" I said, 4 years. He said, "Well, how'd we lose you, son?" I said, "I didn't like that outfit." And I've been wanting to tell somebody that for a long time. But he laughed about it, and it was fun. But Evelyn and I had a great time on that trip, and so
Yeah,
So
that
you gave okay, so you gave George Bush a cross and you got a letter back from him?
yes, and he said, and I didn't say Evelyn's name. I said, uh, and George, I lost my my wonderful wife this year. And he said, he came back on the letter and said, "Well, Laura and I were just bowled over because you lost sweet Evelyn."
Oh.
And I thought, well, that's something. After 25 years, he remembered her name was Evelyn. And
yeah.
so, anyway,
Well, she made an impression.
yeah, she
Let's
did.
you're right.
Well,
And later, I took one to Perry over at that little old town where he built a house after he got out.
yeah,
He was 16 years as governor.
yeah.
And then I also gave one to Abbott the last time we went to National Day of
Yeah.
Prayer.
Well, I mean, I know Miss Evelyn served the people of Texas all during the time that George W. was governor. So, I mean, you don't forget a name of someone who serves the people so well.
Yes.
And I love that. And I want to make something clear because someone asked you they wanted to buy one of these crosses and you said, "Well, you can't buy a cross because
Yeah.
I only give them away. They're
Yeah.
not for sale."
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. And now also, how do you do that? You say that you make crosses from wood, and then when you're about to run out of wood, somebody always gives you more.
Yeah. That's right. Uh, I take them to church on Sunday, and I have a table out in the lobby there, and I usually have anywhere from 8 to 10 crosses, and I put them on that table. And I've got a little note that I put with them and tell them I'd like for them to put them in their home where people could see them and ask questions about it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, they've been a big hit, and I usually give away anywhere from 8 to 10 on Sunday morning
I love that.
at church.
I love that. I mean, the people of Austin are blessed. The people of Texas are blessed. And now, Van, there's a story that I love it every time you share it. And I would really be blessed if you'd share it today. You know, you and Evelyn didn't start out in Austin. You were in Lovekin, Texas, and she was very happy in Lovekin with her boys on her daddy's ranch.
Well,
And
no, it wasn't on her daddy's ranch. I bought 30 acres before we moved back there. I went
oh,
to work for a highway contractor,
okay.
and her dad then, he came and helped us build a house and put his furniture in our barn.
Okay.
And so then he later built a house of his own. But when I knew when I took the job with the old Round Rock Lime Company, I knew that eventually it was going to require me to go to Austin. But I didn't make a big deal about it. And so, sure enough, the sales manager that hired me went to work for a large cement company, and he recommended they make me sales manager. Well, when they made me sales manager, then they wanted me at the home office, which is at Round Rock, Texas. And so I kind of broke it to her gently, and she said, "Well, I've got to go down to Daddy's." He lived down about half a mile down the road, and so she went down there, and he told me later, said that she came in there and she said, "Well, I'm not going to Austin and take the boys." And he said, "What do you mean you're not going to Austin and take the boys?" And she said, "Well, God doesn't live in Austin." And so I'm here to tell you and he told her, he said, he thought a minute. He wasn't even saved at that time, but he later was saved. But he said, "Well, honey, he'll be there when you get there." And
Yeah.
so anyway, I think on the way back home, she thought how silly that was to go down there and tell her daddy that she wasn't going to Austin. And I think she, in spite of it all, she decided to try it. And so the first thing, we bought a new house in Austin. It was being built. It was almost finished. And the minute we moved into that thing, she had a sign in the front yard that said that there would be a Bible study there every week. And so we
So
joined
her
Hyde Park Baptist Church, and we got into everything. She helped form the deal for where they helped students um, that had their wife or husband in town and didn't know uh, how to do a lot of things in America. And
The
so,
international students, right? It was with
yes,
international
international
students.
students.
Yeah.
And everybody that worked in that program had to have at least one foreign friend. And so over the years, we had so many different friends from so many different places that it was unreal. And had a lady that escaped from Red China,
Wow.
and she ended up in France and married a guy that was in the French government, and they sent him to UT.
Wow.
And so she would call Evelyn and give her a list of the foods to go to the grocery store and buy, and she would come over there in the morning early and start and cook that wonderful Chinese food. And so whenever we'd all sit down to eat that night, well, Danny would eat it, and Danny and David, but Danny, whenever he got through, he said, "Well, I got to have some American food." And he got up and got a jar of peanut butter and some crackers. But we always looked forward to her coming, and we had a couple from Germany that I bought a new Cadillac. I was in the real estate business, and they couldn't wait to get over there to ride in that Cadillac and had to have their picture made in it. But we had a lot of fun with them. They also at Christmas time, um, we would take people in that the college would be closed and they didn't have any place to go. And so one Christmas we had uh, two young Japanese boys, and they didn't even know that the other one was going to school at Texas.
Oh, wow. They didn't know each other at school, but
No,
they got
they
placed
knew
with
each
you.
other from Japan.
Oh
And
my
so it
goodness.
really came off well. And then
Wow.
I had spent 2 tours in Japan during the Korean War and had learned a little bit of Japanese. And I knew just enough to make them think that I understood everything they said. And uh, collect, collect, colloquialisms. I can't say the word.
Colloquialisms. Yeah.
Colloquialisms. That just bowled them over. We passed the first time we got in the car riding around. We passed an ambulance, and I said, "Well, there's the meat wagon." And one of them said, "Meat wagon, meat wagon." Oh, the meat wagon, yeah. And so then we passed the a police car, and I said, "There's the insurance man." And they looked at me kind of funny. I said, "Well, it says policy on the side of the car."
Oh, policy.
And,
Okay.
but anyway, we had a great time with them for about 6 or 8 days.
Well, I mean, Van, this is one of the things that really strikes me when you're telling these stories. You are living a life of serving others, but if someone were to ask you, you weren't trying to serve. You didn't go out there and go, "Oh, I'm going to serve today." You were just doing life. You were building community. You were engaging at church. You were filling the need that was there. You were opening your
Are
doors to
you
those
kidding?
people.
I was just hanging on for dear life. My wife got into everything that was available. She helped with Christian women's clubs. We had 2 young missionaries that came from Kansas and lived with us for a year.
Wow.
And she helped them form Christian women's clubs all over Central Texas. And it wasn't like that. I was helping, but I didn't have a choice.
You were just holding.
Uh,
Okay, I love that. So I have this question about I think today people tend to be just really self-focused. We talk a lot in society about having self-esteem when the Bible actually says to esteem others above yourself. And so, but and the Bible teaches us that biblical living is a selfless type of living. It is putting others first. It is serving others. Was there ever a point at time when you kind of realized that life where you could really impact someone else's life for good and that maybe it wasn't all about you? Was there ever kind of that moment when a light turned on, or were you just raised that way that you kind of saw the
I
value of
just
other
fell
people?
into it. I couldn't help myself if I'd have wanted to. And I think the Lord took over at that point and saw that I was willing to do anything. We had, I guess, one of the first things we did is we had a TV program on the local city TV deal, and where she interviewed Christian couples, and it
Where
was
Evelyn
every
interviewed you.
Monday night. And we hauled all that stuff in my pickup, the furniture and everything to go around. And then there was a young man that his dad had a movie company, and he knew all about the lights, everything. He'd come and set all the lights, and so that got quite popular over about a 5-year period. And I don't even remember why we slacked off of, probably because we had too many other things on the agenda. Because by that time she had said, at Christmas time, I said, "What do you want for Christmas?" And she said, "I don't need anything for Christmas." Well, about a week later, she came back and she said, "I've always wanted a radio station." And I said, "Well, what's that going to cost me, and how are we going to find out about it?" She said, "I know a guy that can tell us right now." And so, anyway, she started Love Talk, Love Walk, and we did it for. Well, the first Love Talk, Love Walk we did was with the radio program.
Mhm.
And then later on, I came back to her at Christmas time and I said, "What would you like for Christmas?" And she said, "I don't need anything. It's the same old story." And a week later, she came back and she said, uh, what you asked me the other day, I've really always wanted a newspaper." And so, do you know anybody in the newspaper business? She said, "Oh, yeah. I've already found the guy that'll help us get started." And
Well, and now that was the start of the Good News
the
Journal,
Good
wasn't
News
it?
Journal we
Yeah.
did for almost 25 years. And I hauled those things all over several counties. And I had a half a dozen good people that helped us for nothing.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so, anyway, we
Ye-
had a good
So,
time.
Van, you're being very, very humble here, but basically what you're saying is you married the right woman to continue to point you to Jesus, and you held on for dear life and went with. I love that expression.
Well,
And
you know how I found her. She invited me to her senior prom when I was a sophomore.
that's
And
right. She was older than
she
you.
was 2 years
That's
older than I
right.
was. And it went so well that we went together for about 3 years in high school. Or,
Mhm.
well, she was already out of high school, and I was still in high school. And but we had some great times together. But we broke up about a month before I went in the Navy. It was either join something or get drafted, and I didn't want to go to Korea in the Army. So anyway, I left with us broken up, and she had I don't know how many ladies back in Diboll that wrote me letters and told me that I needed to get my deal straight, and because we belonged together.
Needed to get your act together, huh?
Yeah, get my act
Okay.
together. That's
Okay.
right. And so anyway, they even got nobody hardly had phones then, and they rigged up a deal at the hotel where she could talk to me on the phone. I was in boot camp, and so she called me, and so we kind of got on talking about it, and then we started writing letters to each other, and then by the time I got home, my mother and Evelyn had everything set up. I couldn't have backed out if I'd have wanted to. And
I
but
love it.
not that I wanted to, but anyway, we got married on boot leave, and the five guys that I went into training together from Nacogdoches, all were at the wedding, and one of them was the best man.
I love
And
that.
so that got it all started.
My goodness, that is such a good story. I just love it.
It's a fantastic story because it led to 71 years of loving each other and serving together. And I know you're recounting all of these wonderful stories, Van, but you also you had a heart loved your wife, Evelyn, but you also have a heart for Jesus. And
About Evelyn was so bent on the fact that she didn't have a 4-year college education. Well, about every 3 months, I had to sit Evelyn down and tell her, "Honey, you're smarter than any woman that I've ever dealt with." And I said, you've learned more, you've traveled more, uh, you've done everything more than anybody else I know.
wow.
So why worry about this 4-year college education that you probably wouldn't have enjoyed anyway? I went to 3 different colleges and I didn't enjoy any of them. But I finally got a degree, but that didn't make any difference. That was just a ticket in the door. You had to make everything for yourself.
Right.
Wow. Van, I love all of this. And you have so much more to share with us. And I mean, I know we could be here for 3 hours and not run out of anything. But friends, we have about 12 minutes left in our last segment. And the stories that we're going to share, you are going to want to hear what a servant's heart looks like. What does a servant do? How does someone just step into this relationship with Jesus and live this abiding life that is an abundant life that impacts so many other lives beyond their own? We're going to hear a word from our sponsors who keep Love Talk on the air for over 40 years now. You're going to want to stay with us. We'll be right back with you right after this.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to Love Talk Network. We are so grateful that you are here with us today as we have enjoyed our time with Van Davisson, the husband of our mentor and our friend, Evelyn Davisson, who was so gracious to allow Kathy and I to come along beside her for years and years as she just poured into us. And Kathy, there were so many times when we would say, oh my gosh, we walked into studio and it was just oozing Jesus everywhere, right? Miss Evelyn just had a way of making you feel special and loved. And um, the room was just filled with joy when she was in it. And we're so grateful that her husband, Van, is with us today. I did want to share our anchoring scriptures for today. We have a verse from Mark chapter 9, verse 35. And he sat down and called the 12. And he said to them, if anyone would be first, he must be last of all and servant of all. Van and Evelyn have just spent their lives serving others, leaving a legacy of service. And it's just so humbling, all the work that they have done. Again, in Philippians 2, we hear this: do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourselves. Let each of you look not only to his own interest, but also to the interest of others. So, Van, you said that about 5 years ago or so, 6 years ago or so, you started this making these crosses. Why did you start making these crosses?
Well, I had a bunch of lumber. And
You're a man and you had a workshop in lumber.
well, I had to figure out what to do with it. I didn't want to waste it. And I don't know. It just, the Lord put that in my mind. And I started working on it with a scratch pad. And I was 2 or 3 days before I started the first cross.
Tell us about, I'm going to pick this back up again. Tell us about the 3 crosses together. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. Like you said, typically it's a one cross. Why the 3 together? What was your vision for that?
Well, it's just, I don't know. It seemed like every time I'd start working on one of those things, I'd think of him hanging up there on the cross and those 2 guys standing on either side on the cross.
Mhm.
And one of them wanted to know if he could be with him in paradise. And of course, the other one could have cared less.
Right.
But that kind of got it started, I think. And the more I thought about it, I'd pray about it whenever I'd start to make one of those things. And I don't know, it just came natural, I guess.
Well, it's a perfect picture of our lives, right? Jesus at the center. And, there's so many around us that just are longing to know him. And have we said anything to them? Have we approached them? And then there's always going to be others around us that they don't they don't want it.
Yeah.
They don't want it. Right? But you have been so faithful, Van, for all these years. You have made how many crosses?
Well, it's only been about 4 years,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years.
I know, but how many have you made?
451 as of today.
Van, that is incredible. All of your own hands, and you don't take a dime for these, and you give them all away.
I I went in about a month ago and open the screen door that goes out to the patio. And I've got some equipment out there, and I had a little bit of lumber out there. But I looked over in the corner of the fence, and somebody had come by there and put these 6 foot pieces over the fence,
Oh, nice.
and it had rained the night before, so I was glad that they stood them up because the rain just washed right off of them, and it didn't take a couple of days for them to dry out. But it came just at the right time because I was probably on my last 3 or 4 crosses that I was working on, and then I made probably 15 out of that lumber, and then my grandson Dan and his dad found a cabinet shop that I don't know if they were going out of business or what, but they had 4 big bundles of lumber that was like 12 feet long.
Oh, wow.
And I had very little waste on that because I was able to cut the 2 foot pieces, and then the cross pieces are half of that. And so I just go ahead and cut them all into 3 foot pieces, 2 foot pieces. And then when I was making them, if they had a bad place on them or something like that, I'd make the short piece out of it.
Nice.
And so it worked out pretty good.
I like that it's, every single cross, even though the design is the same, everyone is different because of the wood that's used. And you've used recycled wood off of old Texas farm fences, house fences.
Neighborhood fences.
Yeah.
Like you see those cedar fences that they make, that makes good crosses.
Yeah.
And one guy from church, he asked me one Sunday if I needed any lumber, and I said, "Yeah, I'm getting to the point I'm going to need some." Well, the next Sunday, he came in his pickup and brought a bunch of fence lumber, and I was able to make some crosses out of that too.
It's
Love
awesome.
it. What has God placed in your hands? Because when I think of the design of there being 3 crosses with the thief, but thieves and the robbers on either side, and one chose Christ and the other rejected Christ. To me, it says everyone has to make a choice of what you do with the center cross. What do you do with Christ? Do you want that, easy life that the Pharisees and all the religious leaders of the time were looking for? They didn't want a crucified king. They wanted a king that was like this mighty warrior and savior, which he is, but he was the crucified king because he came to die for our sins. He came to purchase our souls that we had forfeited to death with our sin. And we have to make a decision. What will we do with Jesus Christ? And I think that just like the thieves on the cross, we may not realize that our lives are hanging on the cross. Our lives are kind of hanging in the balance, but they are. And we get to choose what we do with that center cross with Christ.
My grandson just went to work for the fire department up there at Fort Hood. It's not on Fort Hood, but I can't think of the name of that little town right there. But anyway, the head guy saw one of those in Dan's car, and Dan, he asked where he got it, and he told him, and he said, it'd be great if we had one of those at each one of our buildings. And they've got 9 buildings.
Is this in Harker Heights or Killeen or?
Yeah.
Harker Heights?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And so anyway, Dan told me about it, and I said, "Will you tell that guy tomorrow that those 9 crosses are on the way,
Nice.
that I'm making them?" And so
That is great.
anyway, there's going to be one in every one of the fire department buildings. And he took the first one and put it in his office.
Wow.
Well, I was just going to add to what Kathy was talking about with, we have to make a decision about what we do with Christ. But at the same time, the scripture says you don't come to the Father unless you go through the Son. And so who was Jesus? He was a servant. He did that with his ministry, with his teaching. He was a servant healer. He was a servant feeder to the mobs and to the loaves and the fishes. But he was also a servant on the cross. He gave his life for us. And so we can't come to Jesus or live that life unless we too take on that servant mantle. And thank you, Van, for doing that for all these years. But we all have to step into that. And, Kathy and I went to see Community First Village in Austin the other day. And that's their same message as well. They don't condemn anybody for living on the street or for having a life that was not normal.
Right.
They just extend service in Jesus to them.
Well, Van, we just thank you so much for your time with us today.
Well, thank you for letting me come.
It's always a pleasure to have you with us. And, I'm just reminded of so many things when I'm around you, Van. Number one is the legacy of love and servant leadership. We are all capable of serving. We may not all be able to make beautiful crosses like you do, Van, but we are all capable of serving no matter what age we are. And serving may be writing a letter to someone who needs to hear from you, maybe just picking up the phone, right?
I had a lady at church said when I was giving her hers, she said, well, it can also stand for the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
That's exactly right.
I said, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, friends, we are grateful to Van Davisson, and we hope that this has spurred on your thoughts to think about how you can serve where you are, as Miss Evelyn would call it, your love field. Where can you serve in your love field where God has planted you today? Because that's what it's all about. Loving, serving, and seeking Jesus. Friends, if you don't have a church home, we would encourage you to go and find a church that is preaching the gospel. Step your foot in there tomorrow because they want to wrap their arms around you. For Kathy Endebrock, Marlene McMichael, Van Davisson, I'm Coach Carrie Brinkader. We'll see you next time right here on Love Talk Network.